This is Bob Oliphant from the Westford Historical Society and Museum, bringing you episode 21 of the Westford Wardsman podcast. The Westford Wardsman newspaper was part of Turner's Public Spirit, a weekly newspaper in Ayr a century ago. In this episode, we'll be reading the Westford Wardsman for the week ending Saturday, May 23, 1908, and I will add context as we read along to elaborate on what was happening in Westford 113 years ago. The May 23rd issue of the Wardsman began with the Westford Center section. Mrs. Thomas E. Drew, an old and highly respected resident of this village, died at her home on the Boston Road at an early hour Wednesday morning. She was 77 years of age, and death was caused by chronic bronchitis. Mrs. Drew had been in failing health for a long time, but bore her illness with gentle patience. She leaves to mourn her loss one son, Ernest, of Boston, and two daughters, Nellie and Mary E. The latter, who lives at home, has been her mother's devoted companion and caretaker, and has the sympathy of a wide circle of friends in her special loss. Mrs. Alonzo Sutherland was summoned to Somerville this week by the sickness and death on May 15, 1908, of her mother, Mrs. Mary A. Cass. Death was caused by bronchial pneumonia. Mrs. Lewis Marden, who formerly lived at Westford Depot, was one of the daughters. The participants in the dramatics given at Town Hall last Friday evening certainly gave their large audience a good evening's entertainment. The play was well chosen, wisely cast, well acted, and well staged. Many words of commendation have been heard from the village people who enjoyed the play. At the Congregational Church Sunday morning, Reverend Charles P. Marshall brought interesting echoes from the annual meeting of the American Home Missionary Society, convened at Pittsfield the preceding week. In the evening, William A. Perkins conducted the services on the topic, quote, being a Christian at home and at school, end quote. Mrs. Perkins read a thoughtfully prepared paper on the subject, and Miss Sarah W. Loker spoke out of a wide experience in dealing with young people. As experienced teachers, all these made the subject most interesting and helpful. Work is progressing well on the grading of the grounds around the new schoolhouse recently completed. This, of course, is the Frost School. $500 will be used to drain the land near the new academy, which is now Rodenbush Community Center, and put it in proper shape for a playground. The town will appropriate a small sum each year until this is accomplished. The new building will be in entire readiness for the opening term of school in September. Mrs. Clarence A. Reed is ill at her home with pneumonia. Mrs. Reed has the sympathy of her many friends in her illness. Owing to a siege with measles and with her children before she was stricken, she has been particularly taxed and was less able to meet serious sickness. At this writing, she is holding her own and is doing as well as can be expected. It is a year ago this week that our branch line of electric cars from Brookside to the Common and back began to operate regularly, a year with its changing seasons to test their efficiency. On the whole, they have given excellent service, and there is a general verdict of satisfaction with them. Even those most conservatively minded, who look for something to deplore in any radical change, do not fail to commend them. Long may they continue their hourly trips to our hilltop village. The epidemic of measles seemed to have somewhat abated, although there are a number of cases scattered around in various families. School was resumed in the primary grade Monday morning, but the restrictions on library books to families where there are children in the primary grades have not been removed. Miss Beatrice Sutherland has had a particularly severe attack of measles. The next section is a fairly long paragraph entitled Memorial. In another week, Decoration Day, what we now call Memorial Day, will be here, the, quote, memory day, end quote, of the year. when the memory of the soldier dead will be revered, and people all unite in decorating the last resting place of their own loved ones. As usual, it will be fittingly observed here. $150 were appropriated at town meeting to carry out the day's program. On the afternoon preceding, the members of the Veterans Association will decorate the graves of comrades in the North and West cemeteries, and on Memorial Day morning at 9 o'clock, they will leave the town hall for Fairview. Owing to the recent disbanding of Troop F Cavalry, the veterans will miss the gallant escort they have given for many years. In their place, the Sons of Veterans will perform this duty. Upon returning to the hall, a fine program will be given. The Nashua Military Band, which gave such excellent satisfaction last year, will escort the veterans and give selections at the hall. The speaker of the day is Sergeant Augustus F. Hovey of Lowell. He was in Company G, 33rd Massachusetts Volunteer Regiment, and was in the Battle of Gettysburg, which will be the subject of his address. He comes recommended as a splendid speaker. Music will be furnished by the Orion Quartet of Lowell, and readings by Miss Alice E. Livingston, also of Lowell. These last two are favorites with Westford audiences. Reverend B. H. Bailey will offer prayer, and the Honorable Herbert E. Fletcher will preside. Captain Sherman H. Fletcher has general charge of arrangements. At noon in the Lower Town Hall, caterer Fred A. Smith will furnish dinner. In the afternoon of the Common, there will be a band concert. That's the end of the paragraph, but imagine hearing a veteran of the Battle of Gettysburg speak. Sergeant Hovey would have served with several Westford men in the 33rd Mass Regiment. If you've never visited Gettysburg, it is well worth the visit. Not only was it the largest battle of the Civil War, but the battlefield is quite open, unlike many other Civil War battlefields. So you can get a good perspective across the battlefield from many different angles. My wife's great-great-grandfather, Sergeant Samuel McGinley of the 148th Pennsylvania Infantry Regiment, was killed in the wheat field at Gettysburg, leaving a wife and 7 children. So Gettysburg has a special meaning for our family. The next section is the About Town section. Mrs. Beulah Brown, widow of the late Willard A. Brown, died at the home of her son, Willard, in New York City last Monday of paralysis, aged 76 years. The funeral took place Friday from the Unitarian Church, Lowell. She was pleasantly remembered by the older inhabitants of this town, her native place, where she attended school in the old Stony Brook district and at Westford Academy. Her father, Levi Haywood, was a substantial citizen of the town and owned the farm now owned by C.P.R. Decatur and marked by the DAR as the Pelatiah Fletcher Place, which is still in use at 54 Lowell Road. She was a sister of George W. Haywood, who was co-owner of the Haywood and Burbeck grist mill, who is still one of the substantial and influential citizens of the town. That grist mill was located on Stony Brook, just where Depot Street crosses Stony Brook. Reverend B. H. Bailey exchanged last Sunday with Reverend Joseph Sidney Moulton of Stowe, a well-known former minister of First Parish Church, who spoke on, quote, ideals, end quote. Reverend Moulton was the pastor at First Parish Church from 1876 to 1885. The Young People's Union visited the Tingsboro Guild on last Sunday evening. Miss Ruth Fisher, president of the Westford Guild, gave an inspiring paper on, quote, the man who standeth alone. The county commissioners will give a hearing at the town hall on Monday, May 25th at 10:30 on the petition to make certain changes on the road at Westford Corner on Nabnasset and Brookside Roads. John A. Taylor is filling a vacancy in the high school in Keene, New Hampshire. John Taylor is one of the 2 sons of Samuel L. Taylor. The next section is entitled Town Meeting. It is pretty good evidence that the town is not in a stupor of indifference toward availing itself of modern utilities by the number of special town meetings, and all the inhabitants of the town qualified to vote in town affairs are legally warned by the selectmen that a special town meeting, for which the warrants are posted, will be held at the House Monday, May 25th at 10 o'clock a.m. to act on 7 articles, which, after being condensed and much of the whereas and act in relation to the same eliminated, read plainly thus. I'll have to say that's one of the longest sentences I've ever seen in the Wardsman. Article 1, to choose a moderator. This is always Article 1 in all of the town warrants from this time period. Article 2, to hear the report of the committee chosen to investigate the plan of adding 2 rooms to the Forge Village schoolhouse. Article 3, to see if the town will appropriate or borrow a sum of money sufficient to defray the expense of enlarging said schoolhouse. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to accept Section 24, Chapter 32 of the revised laws, providing that no fire shall be set in the open air from April 1st to October 1st, unless by written permission of the forest fire warden. Article 5, to see if the town will vote that no wood, lumber, stones, brush, etc. be left on the highway. Article 6, to see if the town will discontinue Boutwell Brook Road from Graniteville Road to Pine Ridge Road. That one would pass. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to discontinue the road opposite the house of William H. Decatur to the Concord Road. The next section is the Graniteville section. The section gang on the Lowell and Fitchburg line have been busy in this vicinity for the past few days, leveling up the rails and in other ways putting the roadbed in good shape for the summer traffic. P. Henry Harrington, the well-known contractor, is attending the convention of the Foresters of America in Springfield as a delegate from Court Graniteville. Mr. and Mrs. Charles Mulholland and son Francis, Mrs. John Mulholland, and the Mrs. Margaret Catherine and Anna Curran of Lowell were recent visitors at the home of Mr. and Mrs. John Loftus in this village. Many people from this village attended the confirmation services at St. John's Church, North Chelmsford, on last Sunday afternoon. 2 special cars conveyed those who were to be confirmed from here and Forge Village, there being 105 in all from St. Catherine's Church. The parents and friends of the children went down on the regular cars. It was certainly a great day for the children. Beginning Sunday morning, May 24th, and until further notice, Mass will be celebrated in St. Catherine's Church at 8:45 o'clock instead of 9:45 as formerly. May devotions were held in this church Thursday evening and were largely attended. The next section is called Deaths. Gilbert V. Quinn, a former well-known resident of this village, that is Graniteville, died at the City Hospital in Boston on Thursday morning, May 14th. Actually, his death certificate says May 13th. After 3 weeks' illness of typhoid fever, aged 35 years, the deceased was favorably known, having been born and brought up in this village. He received his early education in the public schools here, after which he learned the machinist trade in C.J. Sargent's shop. After serving his apprenticeship, he sought new fields, and being a skillful workman, he met with success. He was a member of the Machinists Union of Boston, and during his work has been identified with the Boston and Sharp Machine Company of Providence, Rhode Island, the Blake Pump Works of Cambridge, and other well-known firms. Being of a cheerful disposition, he made many friends, and his sudden death was a severe blow to his many friends here. He leaves a mother, Mrs. Thomas Quinn, a sister, Mrs. Freeman Palmer of Ayer, and 4 brothers, Harry of Boston, John and Frank of Lawrence, and Edward of Cambridge. The body was taken to the home of Mr. and Mrs. Frank L. Furbush in this village Thursday afternoon, Mrs. Furbush being an aunt of the deceased. The funeral took place last Saturday morning when a funeral high mass was celebrated in St. Catherine's Church at 7 o'clock by Reverend J.J. McNamara. The choir, under the direction of Miss Mary F. Hanley, sang the Gregorian chant, and at the offertory, Miss Hanley sang the Pie Jesu. As the casket was being borne from the church, the choir sweetly sang, "Nearer, my God, to Thee." There were many beautiful floral tributes which testified in a marked degree to the high esteem in which the deceased was held. The church was filled with sorrowing relatives and friends, many being present from Boston, Lowell, Lawrence, Cambridge, and the immediate vicinity. The bearers were John L. Flynn of Forge Village, William H. Wall of Lynn, Thomas E. Smith and T. F. Quinn of Lowell, John Mitchell and D. F. Fitzgerald of Boston. Burial was in St. Patrick's Cemetery, Lowell. The next section is the Forge Village section. Edward Hanley spent Sunday at Marlborough. While there, he took a trip to Chelsea to see the ruins. These are the ruins from the Great Fire of May 12, 1908 that we read about several weeks ago. Albert Jones and Otter Walker walked from Worcester to this village, a distance of 38 miles, in 9½ hours to spend a few days with Mr. and Mrs. William Burnett. They returned to Worcester on Wednesday. One wonders if they walked back or took the trolley. Joseph LeClaire has accepted a position at Barry, leaving the village Wednesday. Mrs. Lawrence has had another very serious attack of illness, and her advanced age makes it still more alarming. If she lives until August next, she will reach her 95th milestone. Preparations are underway for Memorial Day in our schools, and the program will be unusually attractive. There was a large woodland fire Sunday when about 25 acres on Clay Pit Hill, which is located on the Westford-Groton line, near this village were burned. And that's the news in Westford for the week ending May 23rd, 1908. Thank you for listening, and thanks to Nick Woodbury of WestfordCAT for providing technical support. You can find transcriptions from the Wardsman at the Westford Historical Society website at museum.westford.org, or visit the Historical Society's Facebook page for more Westford news from a century ago. This is Bob Oliphant, and I hope you will join us for next week's Westford Wardsman podcast. Thank you.